The Galactic Academy Xenobiology Lecture Hall fell into absolute silence. Professor Zelthar, a distinguished Velkaran scholar with iridescent scales and 4 compound eyes, stood frozen at the podium. His translator chip sparked audibly as it struggled to process what his visual cortex was transmitting. There, sitting calmly beside the human student Noah Chen in the 3rd row, was a creature that should not exist, a wolf Dani Martinez. The only other human in the cohort of 200 alien students felt her heart sink as she watched her best friend scratch the massive gray wolf behind its ears. The animal's tail thumped contentedly against the polished metallic floor, each thud echoing through the chamber like a countdown to disaster. Chen, Professor Zelthar's voice crackled through the universal translator. That is a Canis lupus. Yes, Professor, Noah replied cheerfully, apparently oblivious to the 36 species of alien students who had instinctively activated their personal shield generators. This is Ghost. I got special permission from administration to bring him today for my presentation on Earth's apex predators. A Thrixian student in the front row, resembling a crystalline mantis, made a sound like shattering glass, their species equivalent of a horrified gasp. Permission? You brought a mythological death beast to an academic institution? Dani closed her eyes and pinched the bridge of her nose. This was going to be a disaster. She had tried to warn Noah last night, had explicitly told him that bringing Ghost to class was a monumentally bad idea, but Noah never listened. He never understood how the rest of the galaxy saw Earth, saw humanity, saw the things humans considered normal. Professor Zelthar's scales shifted from their usual emerald to a deep crimson, a sign of extreme agitation. Mr. Chen, the Canis lupus has been listed as extinct in the Galactic Registry for 17,000 years. The last confirmed sighting was during the Terran cataloging expedition, when a survey team observed exactly 3 specimens before they mysteriously vanished. They were classified as Category Omega predators, too dangerous for any civilized ecosystem. Extinct? Noah looked genuinely confused. He glanced down at Ghost, who yawned, revealing teeth that made several students in the back rows scramble for the exits. Professor, there are over 200,000 wolves on Earth. They're making a comeback after humans almost drove them to extinction a few centuries ago. The lecture hall erupted into chaos. 200,000? Shrieked a Pelothian, their gelatinous form rippling with panic. Of those? A Kravik warrior caste student, whose species had conquered 47 star systems through sheer military might, stood up slowly. Human Noah, his translator rendered his gravelly speech with unusual solemnity. Are you telling this assembly that your species, your fragile, death-world species that somehow survived long enough to achieve spaceflight, shares a planet with 200,000 apex predators? Well, Noah said thoughtfully, if you want to get technical, we share the planet with lots of apex predators. Wolves, bears, big cats, crocodiles, sharks, venomous snakes, poisonous spiders. Stop, commanded Professor Zelthar, all 4 of his eyes squeezing shut. Just stop. Dani stood up, deciding it was time for damage control. Professor, if I may, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about Earth's ecosystem and humanity's relationship with it. The professor's eyes opened, focusing on her with what she recognized as desperate hope. Dani Martinez had a reputation as the sensible human, the one who actually understood galactic norms and didn't constantly horrify her alien classmates with casual revelations about Earth's nightmare-fuel biosphere. Please, Ms. Martinez, the professor said. Explain before I file an emergency evacuation order. Dani walked down to stand beside Noah and Ghost. The wolf regarded her with intelligent amber eyes, and she couldn't help but smile slightly as she reached out to let him sniff her hand. Ghost's tail wagged harder. The Galactic Cataloging Expedition visited Earth during what we call the Younger Dryas period. Roughly 12,000 years ago, Dani began, her voice carrying through the silent hall. At that time, humanity was still in its hunter-gatherer phase. What your survey team witnessed and apparently found so terrifying they declared wolves extinct rather than admit they existed was the relationship between early humans and wolves. Relationship? The crystalline Thrixian's voice was shrill. What kind of relationship could possibly exist between sentient beings and Category Omega predators? Dani's smile widened. Friendship, partnership, domestication. The translator chips in the room went haywire. Several species didn't have words for the concept Danny was describing. She pressed on. Approximately 30,000 years ago, some wolves began living alongside human tribes. They helped us hunt. We shared our food with them. Over thousands of years, this partnership became so intertwined that wolves split into two populations: wild wolves that remained apex predators in their own right, and domesticated wolves that we now call dogs. Noah stood up, putting his hand on Ghost's head. Ghost is a wolf-dog hybrid, actually. 97% wolf, 3% Siberian husky. His mother was a wild wolf from the Canadian Rockies. His father was a working sled dog. And you just keep this creature? Asked the Kravik warrior, his tone somewhere between awe and horror. In your dwelling? He lives in my apartment, yeah, Noah confirmed. He sleeps on my bed. Sometimes he steals my socks. A Velkaran student raised 3 tentacles in a gesture requesting permission to speak. But Professor Zelthar said wolves were category Omega predators. The teeth, the claws, the pack-hunting behavior. The survey report described them as perfect killing machines. They are, Danny agreed calmly. She watched understanding dawn in the professor's eyes. That's the point you're all missing. Humans didn't become the dominant species on Earth despite our planet's deadly predators. We became dominant because we turned the deadliest predators into our allies. The lecture hall fell silent again, but this time it was a different kind of silence. Thoughtful, calculating. Several species were re-evaluating every interaction they'd ever had with humans. Professor, Zelthar slowly returned to his natural emerald coloring. Ms. Martinez, are you telling me that humanity's survival strategy on your death world was to befriend the things trying to kill you? Pretty much, Danny said with a shrug. We've got a saying on Earth. If you can't beat them, domesticate them. That's not actually a saying, Noah whispered. It is now, Danny whispered back. Ghost chose that moment to do something that changed galactic xenobiology forever. He stood up, stretched lazily, and then walked over to Professor Zelthar. The professor froze, his scales shifting rapidly through colors indicating terror and confusion. Ghost sat down in front of the professor and raised one massive paw. He wants to shake hands, Noah called out helpfully. It's a trick I taught him. Just take his paw gently. With all 4 eyes fixed on the wolf's teeth, Professor Zelthar slowly extended one scaled hand and touched Ghost's paw. Ghost's tail wagged so hard his entire back half wiggled. A Thrixian student began recording. Within hours, the footage would spread across the galactic network. Within days, xenobiologists from 1,000 worlds would be demanding to visit Earth. Within weeks, the Galactic Registry would require a complete revision of humanity's threat assessment. Because if humans could take a category Omega predator and turn it into something that shook hands, what else were they capable of? The Kravik warrior stood up again. Human Noah, human Danny, he said formally. My people have been wrong about yours. We thought you were weak because you lacked natural weapons. We did not understand that you made weapons out of nature itself. Ghost barked once, a deep, resonant sound that made half the room flinch. Then he trotted back to Noah, circled twice, and lay down with his head on his paws, looking perfectly content in a room full of aliens who, until 10 minutes ago, had believed his kind were extinct. Professor Zelthar cleared his throat, his translator projecting carefully measured calm. Mr. Chen, please proceed with your presentation. I believe we all have much to learn about Earth's unique ecological partnerships. As Noah began his lecture, using Ghost to demonstrate wolf behavior, pack dynamics, and the domestication timeline, Danny caught the professor's eye. He gestured her over to the podium. Ms. Martinez, he said quietly, how many other extinct Earth species should I be concerned about? Danny thought about her sister's pet python, her uncle's falconry hobby, and the aquarium full of piranhas in Noah's apartment building. Professor, she said diplomatically, I think you should just prepare yourself to rewrite the entire Terran section of the xenobiology database. Professor Zelthar's scales turned a resigned shade of gray-blue. I was afraid you'd say that. In the third row, Ghost yawned again, stretched, and promptly fell asleep. Somewhere in the galaxy, automated threat assessment systems were failing spectacularly to categorize humanity. After all, how do you classify a species that turns nightmares into friends?